And the clock ran out. So that's the name of this video. Hey guys, I'm Brad with GeorgiaProbateResource.com. We're a real estate solutions company in Metro Atlanta. We specialize in the world of probate and inheritance properties. We buy houses all over the state of Georgia. So I appreciate you checking out this video today. So I want to share a story about one of the first probate deals I ever did. So I did this deal in 2017, and this was a probate deal. So the background of the story is I was dealing with the daughter. She was an only child of her mom. And when she was like a teenager, her mom got married to another man who was her stepdad. She called him dad, just loved the guy. He was a great guy. Anyways, mom passed away. Mom did not have a will when she passed away. And title to the house was in mom's name only. Okay. So mom owned the property. Mom had actually bought the property before she was married to this man. But because she was married at the time of her death, her husband was an heir to her estate, right? So she didn't have a will. So based on the Georgia laws of intestacy, a surviving spouse does have a percentage ownership of the estate, up to 2/3%, depending on how many children there are and all that stuff. So mom passed away, and then a couple years later, this lady that we were dealing with, her stepdad passed away, and she wanted to sell the property. The property was in foreclosure, so it was delinquent on payments, and it was scheduled to go to auction. She called us like literally right when she got her notice to vacate, or not her notice to vacate, right when she got her delinquency notice, notice of default is what they call it. Basically that they were going to start foreclosure proceedings if she didn't bring it current. Okay, so typically speaking in a foreclosure like that, when you get your notice of default, usually if everything's going on time, at that point, you're about 90 to 120 days away from the actual auction date. Usually once you get your notice of default, because usually they give you notice of default, you have about 30 days to remedy that, and then they're going to issue you a notice of foreclosure, and depending on what time of the month it is, you might have like 60 days at that point. You might have a little bit more time. It just depends on how it falls in the month and when they send the notices and all that sort of thing. Property's in default. It's going into foreclosure. Property is in disrepair. The lady we spoke to, her son had moved into the house, and then ultimately he was in college, and then he had some friends, and then he transferred to another college, and then his friends wanted to stay living in the house. Ultimately, the house just got trashed. I walked in the house and it just reeked of beer and marijuana. There was actually still a bag of marijuana in one of the bedrooms upstairs. I walked in the house and I was like, wow, this smells like college for sure. Beer and marijuana. And I also walk in the house, and crazy story that there's a prosthetic leg like on the floor by the front door. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like the furniture's upside down. There's a prosthetic leg on the floor, and the house reeks of beer and marijuana. And I'm like, and the kitchen was disgusting. I mean, just food that was molding on all the plates and in the sink, and flies, and it was gross. But ultimately, what I found out was that her stepdad, the lady we spoke to, was a disabled veteran, and he had a prosthetic leg from a military injury he had had. So that was his prosthetic leg. But the crazy part was, like, he had been dead for like 2 years now, and the kids, the son and his friends, were living in this house, and why they didn't go put the prosthetic leg somewhere else, I don't know, but it was literally sitting on the floor, like in the living room when you walk in the front door. It's just bizarre. So anyways, house is in foreclosure, and we get to the bottom of it, and we realized that we needed to probate her mom's estate. We had to file a probate, and then the daughter was going to be the administrator of the estate. It was pretty simple, right? It was Daughter understands that her stepdad has some rights to the house. And then basically based on the laws of intestacy, his parents were dead. He didn't have any children. So in which case, his siblings were the next degree that basically had heirship rights. He had 2 siblings. And this gentleman was like in his 70s, and the siblings were in their 70s as well. And so daughter realizes she needs to probate it. She didn't have a lot of money, so we actually offered to pay for the probate up front. Basically, what we do in these simple probates, and in this case, my closing attorney agreed to file the probate. It was a simple administration, very simple. So he was going to file the administration for her, and then we just fronted the cost of the court fees, which was like $200 or something for all the court fees, and that my attorney would collect his, I think he was only charging her like $750, $800 or something to file the probate. He would just collect that at closing. It would come out of the closing proceeds and everything was good. So we go to file the probate, and then we get in the middle of it. We make her an offer. She accepts the offer, all that. We're getting into the closing process. And then, mind you, this house is in foreclosure, and there wasn't a ton of equity in this house. I mean, this house was in disrepair. It was going to be a pretty big rehab job. I really wasn't making a ton of money on this deal. I was early on, and I didn't realize that these deals weren't really worth my time. I think I was only going to net like maybe $15,000 in profit at the end of the day on this deal, which to the average person sounds like a lot of money, but on a house flip, 15 grand profit is not much profit. And if anything goes wrong, or you overestimate what you can sell a house for, or you go over budget on your rehab, that 15 grand can turn into a loss really fast. So anyways, I was only going to make like 15 grand on this house or something like that. I was new in the business. I didn't know any better. We get in this probate, and she was only going to make like $5,000 or something on this deal. I think it was only like $5,000 is what she was going to make. And she had to, I think the total was like $7,500, but then she had to split the money with her, with the siblings of her stepdad, and split that money. So ultimately, I think she was only going to make like $5,000. It might have even been less than that. It wasn't much money, right? So then the siblings get in the middle of it. And once they get wind of the fact that they're going to get some money, they start contesting the fact that they don't want to accept the offer on the house, and and fighting her about it. And mind you, this property is in foreclosure. It's going to get lost in foreclosure very, very soon. We don't have time to deal with this. The clock is ticking, right? So then they start creating resistance, right? And the crazy story was that the lady we were dealing with is like, look, I don't even know these people. I've never even met them in my life. She said, when my stepdad was sick, he ultimately died of cancer. When he was sick, she's like, I took him to his radiation and his chemotherapy appointments every day. I took time off of work. I took him to all of his doctor's appointments. Again, he was a disabled veteran, so he needed help. She was like, I came over to the house. I cooked him dinner. I made him meals. I cleaned the house. I took him to his doctor's appointments. She's like, yes, he was my stepdad, but he was my dad, because her real dad had passed away or something, or wasn't around. And so she treated this man like her real dad. And she's like, I took care of him. She's like, I never even knew about his siblings. I had heard of them, but she's like, I've never met them in my entire life, right? All of a sudden, when they get wind that they're going to get some money, and again, I think the way that the money worked out is that these siblings were only going to make $2,000 total. So split between the two of them, they were only going to get $1,000 a piece. Like, that's how it worked out based off of and again, this was so many years ago, but I remember that the one piece I do remember is that each of them was only going to get $1,000. That was it, $1,000. So they start creating heartburn in this deal, and they start postponing this deal. And I'm like, guys, my attorney reached out to him and said, like, if you do this house is likely going to go into foreclosure, and you're not going to get anything out of this. So they start fighting over it. And then finally I was like, guys, Like, I will pay you your $1,000 just to like let this deal go through, because if you mess this up right now, it's going to go into foreclosure and no one's going to make any money. What ultimately happened in this deal? The property went into foreclosure. I was not able to buy the deal. We ran out of time. The two siblings created so much heartburn that it ultimately went into foreclosure. The house actually sold at auction for less money than what was owed on the house. So that means they didn't get any money. There was no, so some people know this, some people don't know this, but if your house is in foreclosure and let's say you owe the bank $100,000 and it sells at auction for $125,000, you're entitled to the overage of the $25,000 if it sells at auction. But if there's a loss, there's a deficiency is what they call it, you don't get anything. And in this case, this is what happened. There was like $90,000 owed, and I think it sold at auction for like $80,000, right? So the bank ended up buying the property back. So the bank bought the property back from themselves. They won their foreclosure auction. They went in and fixed it up themselves, and they ultimately sold it for more money. That's called an REO. When the bank buys their own property back at auction from themselves, it becomes an REO, real estate owned. Back after the crash, that was a very common thing, but you don't see that anymore because foreclosures right now are extremely rare. They just don't happen anymore. There's just not a lot of properties being foreclosed on at the moment. Even with the market adjustment we've seen in the last 6 months, foreclosures are still historically low. Anyways, what ultimately happened with this deal is that the property went into foreclosure and they lost the house and they didn't make any money. And the sad part about this is that the daughter, she really could have used the money. And again, remember, I paid out of my own pocket for the attorney for the court filing fees for the probate. So I was out $200 or whatever, because ultimately we ended up just not going through with the probate because there were no other assets other than the house. That was like literally the only thing. So there was really no point to file a probate at that point. But the daughter was just trying to do the right thing, and she was gonna, she was entitled to a little bit of money. Again, I think she was only making like $5,000 or something like that. And me, like I said, I really wasn't making that much money either way because I was gonna have to turn around and go spend $40,000, $50,000 to renovate this house. And my net profit at the end of the day was gonna be maybe $15,000 over the course of like however many months. So that's the moral of the story here, guys. Like, if the clock is ticking, think about the alternative, right? And in which case I offered them money. I was like, guys, I will give you like $1,000 just to not fight this thing out, because that's all they were going to get anyways, was $1,000, because the bank was owed X amount of money. And then, after the foreclosure, the net amount of money that they were going to get at closing, essentially these siblings were going to make $2,000 split between them. So it'd be $1,000 a piece. That was it. And they were creating all this heartburn and fighting this thing over $1,000 each. I was like, guys, I'll give you $1,000, like, just to not deal with this. Like, why are you doing this? But ultimately it blew up in their face. They didn't get any money. The property went into foreclosure. I didn't buy it. The daughter didn't get any money because, again, it sold at auction. Nobody made any money. And we all just wasted all of our time. We just wasted time. So I know these stories are kind of long. They're all going to be long, but these are stories that I think a lot of people can relate to because these situations are real. They happen every single day. We deal with them all the time. So if you're in the middle of one of these situations and you're fighting with your family members, I'd encourage you to, maybe if you can, go, maybe sit down to some counseling or something. Go find a counselor and realize that at the end of the day, a lot of this spite and this fighting over this money, for what? What is it for? What is the ultimate goal? You're going to ruin the relationship with your sibling? Because what happens 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever, how many years from now, and you're on your deathbed and you and your siblings had some kind of infighting years ago and you haven't talked in years, and now you're on your deathbed and maybe they're your only surviving sibling and you're all by yourself on your deathbed and you can't make up with your sibling over that. Think about that. Maybe it's worth it to never talk to them again. Maybe so, right? Maybe you can never forgive them. That's up to you. But maybe you should talk to a counselor or a therapist about that. So I appreciate you checking out this video. Again, I'm Brad with GeorgiaProbateResource.com. We're a real estate solutions company in Metro Atlanta. We specialize in the world of probate and inheritance properties. We buy houses all over the state of Georgia. And if you want to sell the house for an easy, fast cash offer, you don't want to mess with it, you just want it done. Heck, we'll even buy it with all the junk in it. Actually, most of the probate houses we buy come with some kind of stuff. We buy it with all the stuff in it, right? Or if you want to go the traditional route over here and you want to maximize every last penny you get out of the property, maybe you got a really nice house, you want to list it out on the open market with an agent and do it the traditional way. I'm a licensed agent with One Source in Woodstock. I'd be happy to talk to you about that as well. So thanks again for your time. I appreciate you watching the video. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.